Hello, I'm here with Paul and Taguk. Paul, I've heard of Sheldon Jackson College in Sitka. I don't think it exists anymore, but who was Sheldon Jackson?
Well, Sheldon Jackson, it's a great question. He probably more than anyone else made Alaskan education for Alaskan natives what it is today. He created it more than anyone. He was the first appointed commissioner of Alaska education for everyone. He realized he did not have the resources, the funding to provide schools for all the different places where there were Alaskan children, including Alaskan natives. So one of the things that he did that was pretty unique is that he took Alaska and he divided it up really into different regions, and he pushed at different times Protestant Christian groups to take over a region of Alaska, and with his federal responsibilities, he just skipped past the separation of church and state, and he dual appointed these people. So they were missionaries supported by their churches. But Sheldon Jackson also made them teachers, and he promoted prefabricated homes and churches, homes, parsonage, classroom, one building, and put them out there as prefabs. They were unloaded by the Coast Guard, the predecessor to the Coast Guard, revenue cutters, in these different parts of Alaska. So, in a sense, he's figuring out, well, how do we do this, and how do we make these important things? There's a book about him, and it's long out of print, but it's Alaskan Apostle, the life story of Sheldon Jackson. And it's a part of a huge literature of Alaska missionaries who have biographies or autobiographies. And I just love collecting them, but I think historically they're important because from these you get a sense of how do they see the world and what do they see as the most important things to educate Alaska natives for? What's the purpose? And it's different than it is from the purpose for non-native children in Alaska. And a key part of it is that Sheldon Jackson's following a tradition within federal Indian policy. So he didn't invent the idea of church-state connections in dealing with Indians. He's just following that.
I see.
Yeah, and one of the documents, it's a great text, is documents of United States Indian policy. And this is a little gold mine. If you're just getting started, it's done by Francis Paul Prucha, Catholic, not missionary, Catholic father. There we go. And in it, he has a selection. It's on page 141, and it's the 85th of the excerpts, and it's called "Assignment of Indian Agencies to Religious Societies," and it's an extract from the annual report of the Commissioner of Indian Affairs in 1872.
Wow.
And this one's laying out the process by which different groups would be given regions or tribes by the federal government to educate and civilize and Christianize American Indians and their tribes. So the Friends, the Hicksites, they get an area. The Friends, the Orthodox, get another area. The Baptists get the Cherokee along with others. And the Presbyterians are involved. The Methodists, Catholics, Reformed Dutch, and Congregational, and then the Protestant Episcopals, and even the Unitarians get a little piece of this action. So this idea of is based on the key concept that Native people, Native Americans, American Indians, and now Alaska Natives are savages. We're savages, and we don't need to learn to read and write alone. We need to be redeemed from our savage state. So that's a framework for the work as Sheldon Jackson sees it, and it's a framework that's a part of American Indian policy, really from the early stages, even during the British colonial era, and it just carries forward. And it definitely doesn't go away until officially until the 1960s and 70s, when the BIA, Bureau of Indian Affairs, education policy is really trying to shift direction from this. But it's like trying to move a super tanker in direction. There's a lot of historical momentum behind it. And there are scholars in Alaska, including our own at UAA, Tim Jester, who sees connections between this idea of civilizing Alaska Natives and school programs that he's observed and written about in his research. And they're well worth checking out, well worth looking for. So Sheldon Jackson, he's powerful in that he sets this direction. He's also small. He tried to go for foreign missions, but he didn't make the cut physically.
Oh, wow.
They thought he was too delicate. So in all of his journeys, he's writing about, I went 700 miles by dog team and 3 dogs died from the cold, and, other people got frostbite and couldn't continue. And then he's in Southeast Alaska. I was in an open Tlingit canoe going from one place to the other, bringing God's truth and education to these people. And in the time that I was in this open canoe, somebody died of hypothermia, another person fell overboard. He's got all these stories, and I used to wonder when I read these, why is he so big on this? And then you realize he got turned down for world missions, and it's like every time he writes this, he's saying to everyone who's so there, it was the wrong call, is what he's sort of pointing his fingers at, which I love. And I think he's kind of a fun character in that way. Tragic in his views, but they're not unique. This idea of saving American Indians and Alaska Natives from our own cultures by assimilation, teaching Christianity in English and English only are the only points of salvation for Indians. Otherwise, we deserve to be exterminated. So I think he's important enough that there was, yes, at Sheldon Jackson College in Sitka, which I think is testimony to his energy. We can't question his ethic of hard work. He's just amazing. He's like the human version of a mountain goat. He's just doesn't quit. He's got enormous determination. So Sheldon Jackson, one of the real sort of considerations that I have for us today is it's not always how hard you work or how dedicated you are. We really have to go back and question, why do we see our work in this way? Why do we think this is the best for these students? What are the implications of our view of things, our concepts by which we are operating? I think too often educators, that goes all the way from superintendents all the way through to, our teachers, is this constant focus on, well, how do we carry this off. When sometimes we need to sit back and think, why are we doing this to these students? Is there something that we're doing that undermines our own best efforts? Sometimes our hard work is working in the wrong direction. So the important thing is not only your velocity, but your vector, your direction on things. And I think Sheldon Jackson's a powerful example of that in Alaska history and particularly in Alaska Native education.